Hey guys, and welcome to this video where I'm going to try and break down Baldur's Gate 3 for the less than experienced or completely new players among you. I'll hopefully answer some questions you might have early on in the game, and give you my thoughts on the game in its current state in early access. This game is based around Dungeons and Dragons, and full disclosure, I am not a D&D player. I've played tabletop D&D once, and I had fun with it, but I went into this game as a complete D&D noob, which is why I'm hoping this guide might be helpful to some noobs out there. So, D&D is an incredibly detailed and in-depth tabletop game. With character sheets and dice rolls, a dungeon master, it's grand in design, but I think that's what can deter newer players to the game. The sheer volume of stuff you need to learn. And this video game is no different. I only scratched the surface of the tabletop D&D game when I played for real, but it was a fun experience nonetheless. But for now, let's talk about the game. Baldur's Gate 3 is a role-playing game which revolves around creating a character, how they look, their proficiencies and skills, and then heading out for an epic adventure. Then, throughout this adventure, you will encounter different characters and events where the things you do, what you say, and how it's received is determined by a series of dice rolls and skill checks. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game recently out in early access and developed and published by Larian Studios, who are also known for other titles such as Divinity Original Sin 2, which is also a D&D style game. My aim with this video is to try and equip new players looking to pick up the game with an idea of whether the game is for you or not. Maybe quell some worries or concerns, hopefully answer some questions about what to expect along your journey. So, maybe you've seen this game played on Twitch or playthroughs of YouTube, and you like the look of it, but you aren't sure if it's for you. Maybe you're intimidated by the depth of it, the mechanics and sheer size of the game. Perhaps you simply see this game as a monumentous task to fight through learning everything before you can fully enjoy it. I saw this game as a potentially grand adventure with twists and turns, ups and downs. I saw the potential to have a story told to me in a way that no other RPG has to date. All of this while mixing in a foundation of a legendary tabletop game that I only briefly experienced. And this really excited me. But I also don't know anything about D&D as I've explained, and was apprehensive at first as to whether I would really enjoy this game. Thankfully, I am happy to report that I was not, in any way, disappointed. But for now, let me take you through some elements of the game from a noob's point of view, brand new to the game, as well as touch on some of the other areas you, as a new player, will encounter in early access. When beginning a new game, you start with character creation, which in itself seems a complicated and daunting task right out the gate. And fair warning, this section may take some time, as there is a lot in character creation, and I found it to be pretty important for an enjoyable playthrough. There's many different combinations of character, with different stats and skills. You choose an origin, race, and most importantly, a class. Depending which class your character takes, dictates what role your character will play with your party or group throughout the game. By this, I mean tank, spellcaster, healer, the usual stuff, you get the idea. From there, you also have origin, race, skills, and abilities, all of which interlink to increase your stats or give you proficiency in certain things while in-game. Deception, for example, which is your ability to successfully lie to a character found throughout the world. And there are many skills and proficiencies to be aware of. So, for those wanting to min-max their characters, of which I count myself among those people, you want to aim for an origin, race, skills, and abilities that complement your class. An example of this is the Warlock class. This class uses your character's charisma stat as its primary stat, meaning charisma affects your chance to hit and damage multipliers for your spells. So you want to aim for a race that comes with extra charisma, as well as dumping as many spare skill points into your charisma stat to maximize your spellcasting abilities as a warlock. Keep in mind that different classes use a different stat as their primary, so make sure to check each class out thoroughly. The main thing to take away from this is that character creation is extremely deep, and if you want to understand it fully, you need to spend some time with it. read the stats and information that it gives you to make an informed decision about what you want your character to do. It seems complicated at first, and it is to some degree, but you are able to piece it together with a little bit of time. Some classes, however, are simpler, and in my opinion easier for new players to pick up, than others. Which is why I recommend you begin with selecting your class first before getting overwhelmed with the broader areas of character creation in Baldur's Gate 3. Classes like Fighter, Cleric, depending on your chosen subclass, which we'll get into later, and Ranger aren't bad choices right out the gate. Now again, this is my opinion, but let me know down in the comments if you think I've missed something or I'm just flat wrong. With that said, none of the classes are particularly hard, but at least from what I've played, some classes offer more complexity than others, so bear that in mind when choosing. The game does a good job of introducing you to whatever your chosen class is too. So whatever your character, you'll pick it up. I will say that a first run as a fighter gives you more room to learn the mechanics, in my opinion. In my first ever run of Early Access, I played a Warlock, and I found it hard to keep up with the volume of abilities and options available to me in the later parts of the game. I often forgot about some of the abilities and utility that Warlocks can offer, as I was too busy trying to brute force an engagement that could have been far easier of a fight if I had properly utilised my own characters and my party's abilities and skills. So take your time, pick a class that you think you'll like. Remember, your character needs to represent you and how you want to play. So selecting a class and role you like is important, as you are stuck with this for the duration of your playthrough. Early Access offers a portion of the full list of classes that will be available in the full game. The classes available in Early Access are Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, Warlock, and Wizard. There are many videos on YouTube, and there's some really good class videos on the Baldur's Gate 3 wikis to give you more information about these individual classes and subclasses. So I recommend you check those out if you're torn between two classes. It's worth investing the time to ensure you have the character you want. What complicates things further is certain classes have subclasses. Now, most classes in Early Access choose their subclass when they reach a certain level in the game. So you might not need to worry about this yet, but it's good to be aware of. However, some subclasses are chosen in character creation, which is why I wanted to touch on them here. Think of these subclasses as sort of specializations within a class to further focus and define your role within the game. A good example of a subclass that is picked during character creation that further defines a class is the Cleric, where if you choose the Life Domain subclass, you effectively become the healer for your party, compared to the Light Domain subclass, which is primarily damage and a few support abilities for utility. Clerics can also rely on melee attacks for damage instead of just spells, and I've found they are fairly versatile as a class overall. Now, D&D veterans might disagree here, but as a new player myself, and especially as this video is for new players, for now, pick a class that isn't going to complicate things for you and that you want to play, and then fit the rest around that. I could talk for hours about character creation in this game, but I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. On a side note, you also get to create who your character dreams of. This is something I won't touch on too much, as I believe this will play a bigger role than we're shown in Early Access, and it doesn't have too much bearing on anything just yet. Or does it? We're not sure yet. For now, just know that you can create a partner or lover whom you may notice a few times throughout your playthrough. For now, let's move on to the tutorial and a little bit on the open world parts of the game. So, you've made your class, you've chosen your race, you've chosen your skills, your abilities, you've made your waifu. Now you're getting thrown into the game. So after the initial cutscene, when you discover the driving force for the game's plot and story, you are thrust into the fray, into the depths of a ship belonging to a creature known as a Mind Flayer. Your objective is simple: escape. This will serve as your tutorial and allow you to become familiar with the UI, movement, controls, combat, dialogue, skill checks, and introduce you to the party system and your first party member. This is where you will start to see the game open up and allow you to experience enough to see you through to the open world. Try to use the opening tutorial as exactly that. Learn what you can and don't get too wrapped up in everything else. Focus on what's in front of you. Other than that, I won't go into too much detail about things here. Part of the joy of this game was discovering everything. And there is a lot to discover, so I won't spoil anything if you decide to get the game. For now, I will list off a couple of notable things that I felt knowing earlier would have helped. So, number 1. Regardless of how good your character is at a specific thing, you may still fail that skill check. For example, when rolling a persuasion skill check, you may only need to roll an 8 or above with someone who is good at persuasion, whereas someone who isn't proficient at persuasion may need a 13 or above. Every skill check in the game is rolled with a 20-sided dice. If you roll under the required amount, you fail that check. So in that example, where you need an 8 or higher, you could roll a 7. Trust me, it happens. The point is, proficiency doesn't guarantee you make a successful roll, it only increases your chances of a successful roll. Number 2. The characters in your party are spec'd differently, meaning one character might be better equipped for a specific job or task than another, like pickpocketing, for example. So make sure you use the best character for the task in front of you. Number 3. Your inventory is based on weight, so be careful how much you loot with one character. Characters with too much weight will suffer movement penalties in combat, or even be unable to move altogether. Your strength stat is what dictates how much weight a character can hold. More strength equals more weight you can carry. Number 4. Save. Often. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game where a lot of things can happen without you being prepared for them. Pressing, nay, proactively pummeling your F5 key regularly will save you a lot of backtracking and wasted time. I'm serious. Do yourself a favor and save yourself hours of retracing your steps. Save often. Number 5. Make use of the turn-based mode. In the open world, you can swap between turn-based mode, which is also used in combat and battle encounters, and free walk mode. Turn-based mode is really useful for setting up ambushes and getting the upper hand before a fight begins. This is something I began to use later on as I witnessed other streamers use it very effectively, in fact. It allowed me to go back to other encounters I had previously lost and ambush the enemy, giving me the upper hand and eventually winning the fight. It can be a powerful tool when used right, and can often mean the difference between winning and losing an encounter. Number 6. Gear and gold. Keeping an eye out for good gear is very important. There are so many powerful weapons and some good armor pieces you can find by doing quests, looting enemies, pickpocketing merchants, or discovering secrets. Gear can often mean the difference between winning and losing an extended fight, so always equip the best stuff to the appropriate people. For example, a rogue with light armor proficiency wearing heavy armor will mean they are less effective in combat and other areas like stealth or whatever. Gold, on the other hand, can be farmed fairly easily if you know how, and is attained how you would expect. Rewards, looting, the usual stuff. It's important to hold onto your gold for when you find good gear on a merchant you can't obtain by other means, like, say, pickpocketing. Gear is important. It can mean the difference between an encounter you breeze through or an encounter you simply cannot get close to winning. Number 7. Spell points and resources. Spellcasting characters have a set number of spell points which they need to use to cast certain spells they have prepared. The number is dictated by the class you choose, and you will find yourself running out of spell points very quickly and very often if you don't manage them effectively. This sort of goes back to the selecting a simpler class, at least initially, but just be aware some, not all, but some of your more powerful spells require a spell point to cast that spell. In terms of resources, hoard your food. Seriously, hoard your food. Food is great at healing low health party members outside of combat and can be used as a last resort for healing inside of combat. Number 8. End of day and campfire. You will discover the campfire mechanic as you play. It acts as an end of day / long rest for your party, allowing them to heal and regain lost resources like spell points. This also develops the story in some ways and offers you a chance to learn more and become closer to your other party members. And yes, you can romance in this game, so there's that if the mood takes. The campfire also acts as a place to swap out your party members. You want to swap out the rogue for the cleric? Do it at the camp. Who you take with you can have a big difference in your playthrough, as different characters interact differently with each other, different dialogues occur with different encounters. Each member of your party can have personal quests to do, which give you good backstory and a deeper look into their origins. It's also important to note that I have found different characters are better or worse in certain encounters. Selecting your party is an important choice. I need to stress that. Now you can always end the day and change back or shuffle new people into the active party, but I personally had my party that I maybe swapped out 1 or 2 people depending on what mood I was in or whether I knew what I was about to encounter up ahead. Other than that, I don't want to say too much more about the open world, as I don't want this video being another 3 hours long. So I'll move on to progression. So, progression. Progression is one of the best parts of any RPG for me, and Baldur's Gate 3 offers what I thought to be a somewhat restrictive progression system at first. It's important to mention that not all classes or subclasses are in the game right now, but the process of leveling was a little confusing to me at first. Your class plays a factor into what you get at which level. So, as mentioned above, with subclasses, clerics choose their subclass at character creation, whereas a fighter will choose their subclass at level 3. When you level up, it's important to factor in your class and the main stat that affects your class. The earlier example being Warlock as a charisma-based spellcaster. The good thing here is these levels can help adapt the class to your liking. And levels don't happen that often, so it's worth taking the extra time you need to fine-tune what you want your character to do. Let's say you start as a fighter, but after a while you find the class a little less interesting compared to some of the others. At level 3, one of the subclasses you can pick is Eldritch Knight, which essentially allows you to become somewhat of a spell-casting frontline fighter. So you can adapt into what you want to do. Be warned, however, once you have completed a level up, stat increase, extra perk or proficiency, chosen subclass at level 3, you cannot go back and change these. This is the same for the rest of your party as well. So build a party of characters you like and try to have them complement your weaker areas. Have Astarion be good at pickpocketing, dexterity and stealth, while you, as a fighter, are good at intimidation, strength and constitution, or health. So, I think I've rambled on enough. Time for some final thoughts. This game is amazing. It's worth the price tag even in early access in my opinion. Now, it's very important to emphasize that early access part of this game. It's still in development. There are issues and bugs. At the time of this video, I have not been able to play multiplayer for 2 reasons. Firstly, multiplayer has had many issues with players becoming desynced to a game-breaking level, and generally bugs that ended the runs indefinitely were all too common. The second reason is, I have no friends. So my run was 100% solo, and I had a blast the whole way through. Now, even with that said, I did run into some issues. Camera bugs mostly, where it just didn't like the tight cave my party was walking through, and often in large encounters the enemy AI would pause and do nothing for long periods of time. That's about it though. I did also have 2 crashes, which was not too intrusive as I quickly became accustomed to saving regularly. Considering the depth of this game, the sheer volume of stuff you can do and the amount of ways you can do them is actually mind-blowing to me. 2 crashes in a 34-hour playthrough, roughly, of an early access title is pretty damn good going, especially with the state of some games that come out at full release nowadays. I honestly cannot wait to experience multiplayer with friends. A full D&D party made up of the characters we all want is going to be one hell of an adventure. One thing I need to mention in this game is the music. The music is just beautiful. There's music in this game that you can actually miss as well, as it relies on you stumbling upon a specific character in a specific area of the open world map. I mean, just listen to this.
Mine will turn to ash when you go the last line down. Moon reminds me of your grace, oh the love I can't repay. Rest and know that I will pray. Farewell, my dear old friend.
Now, the journey this game takes you on is a long one, and I did find myself yearning for the end at hour 30 plus. However, that's only because I wanted to start over as another class, make different choices and create different outcomes. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this game as a brand new player to Baldur's Gate 3 and D&D, but this game scratched an RPG itch I've had for a long time, and I can't wait for the next run so I can learn more about the game, the world, the characters, be more knowledgeable about dealing with specific enemies and encounters, and become better at the game overall. And that's it, that's all. If you have made it this far through the video, I want to give a massive thank you to you. I hope this was at least helpful to some of you. Please do let me know down in the comments what you liked and disliked, if there was anything I missed as well, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future, if you want me to dive into more character creation or whatever. The more feedback I get on these videos, the better, as I'm still starting out with this, so again, the more feedback, the better. I also stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday evening, and most weekends when I can. So if you have any more questions or just want to come and hang out, you can find me there. All the links are in the description. So once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.